Hi everyone. I'm used to the music. I'm sorry, I haven't been here in a while. Well, happy holidays for everyone that celebrated some holidays since I've been here. As you know, today is Wednesday. If it wasn't for this class, I might have forgotten. The Learning Liaison is always excited to have you. So, like always, let's get started. Oh, just kidding. Okay, let's get started now. Okay, so you guys know me. I love my algebra. So here's an algebra problem. It is a middle/high school problem. Let's make that a little bit. There we go. So middle school algebra, high school algebra, they're kind of one and the same. Because remember, when you're taking your classes in middle school, it's because you're advanced and you're taking those classes earlier, right? So let's read our question and let's see what's going on. What is the product of all possible values of x in the following equation? So first things first, the question is asking us to do what? Find the product, which we have to figure out what that means, of all possible values of x. So by default, we are going to solve for x, and then can anyone tell me what product means? Product. What does it mean? Multiply, add, subtract, divide. I should hear you all the way in New York yelling at me, multiply. Product means to multiply. So in order for us to do this, we have to find our answers and then we have to multiply them. Okay, ready? Does anyone know how to set up the problem? How do I set this up? Do I do this? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Well, what you are supposed to do is set up two equations. And if you know what those two equations are, then you're in a really great place because once you do that, it's an easy solve problem, right? So let's go ahead and create our two equations. When we have an absolute value sign, it tells us, that's what these lovely bars are. These lovely bars are absolute values. It tells us that whatever happens inside, we do it, and then when we remove the bars, they become positive. Why does that happen? That happens because absolute value is about distance. Let's go on a little side tangent. Absolute value is about distance. Why is that important? So if you get up and you take 2 steps forward, you would have taken 2 steps, right? I think we all agree with that. Now, if you get up and you're still standing there from wherever you were, and you decide to take 4 steps backwards, are you going to say that you took -4 steps? No. No. You're going to say that you took 4 steps. It doesn't matter the direction in which you took it in. So because distance cannot be negative, absolute value will also not be a negative value. And that's if you only have numbers on the inside, you do what you do to them, and then when you remove those lovely bars, that's when the number becomes positive. Well, let's think about it. If I had -3 inside the bars and I had a +3 inside the bars, both of them would yield a +3 as an answer. So I can have two values of whatever is going on, right? Well, because of those two values that have the potential of being there, we have to solve for those two values by creating those two equations, right? So the equations I was talking about earlier that I was hoping that you guys would tell me about, I haven't seen any activity in the chat right now. So I was a little late today, I apologize, but activity. Okay, ready? Our first equation is going to be exactly what we see. X minus 10 is equal to 3. And on the other end, our second equation is going to be what? X minus 10 is equal to -3. We're going to go ahead and solve both of these for x values. Once we get those x values, you guys know what to do. I'm going to add 10 to both sides. For my blue equation, the equation on the left, I'm going to have x is equal to 13. Then I'm going to add 10 to both sides on my green equation, my equation on the right, and I'm going to get x is equal to 7. Well, what are we supposed to do again? 7 and 13, they're not our answers. And you guys know better. 13 and 7 is not the answer because what are we supposed to do? Get the product, which means we now have to take 7 and multiply it by 13 And what do you get? 91. Our answer is 91. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay, you guys know what to do. If you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. And if I move on and I see a question from the previous question, I will come back to it once I'm finished with that problem. Okay, number 2. I haven't tried to trick you guys in a long time. So here I am today giving you PEMDAS. And I'm writing it, and I'm going to ask you, is this the way that we write PEMDAS? And ooh, I should hear you yell, no, this is not the way. No, 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 this is not how we write PEMDAS. You know better. You know I don't like that way. How are we supposed to write it? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division, addition or subtraction. Which one do I see first? Don't forget that. So now we look at this lovely problem that we have, and the problem is just long. It's just a long problem. So we're going to start with our parentheses. Brackets are fancy versions of parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to start with that 6 times, it's 6 times, negative 24 plus 8. Right, so here we're going to have 6 times negative 24 plus 8. Inside that, what are we going to do? That's not an X. So you know what? Let me just put a little dot. There we go. Well, I'm not going to add the 24 and the 8. I'm actually going to multiply by 6 and negative 24. When I multiply by the 6 and negative 24, I will get negative 144, add my 8, bring everything else down accordingly. So because we're doing parentheses, there's nothing to do inside this set of parentheses. Remember, you're working from your inside to your outside. So if there's nothing to do inside, we're going to just rewrite it and keep moving on. I'm going to bring down my plus, and now I'm going to do what is inside this set of brackets, which is just a fancy way of parentheses. And it says 4 times 5, which is 20, and keep my divided by 2. And the equal sign is just an equal sign. You don't have to worry about it because we're going to get an answer. Okay, so now I'm going to start with my parentheses again because I haven't finished them off yet. Now I have that first set of parentheses, which says negative 144 plus 8. So when I add those together, what do I get? I get negative 136. Then I bring my negative 4 down. The parentheses in this case no longer really matters, but I'll write them just to be safe. Give you guys some sanity. And then I have a plus 20 divided by 2. Well, 20 divided by 2 is what? It is 10. We're almost there. Now that we've pretty much finished off the multiplication and division, and we've finished off our parentheses, we now continue through with what we have. We have negative 136 minus parentheses negative 4. So what's going on with that set of parentheses right there? That negative 1 has to get distributed inside to that parenthesis. Anything on the outside of parenthesis automatically tells us to multiply. So we have negative 136. A negative times a negative will give us a positive. Keep the 4 and bring down the plus 10. All right, now here's the great thing about this. You can add and subtract this how you would like, because when you add and subtract numbers, you still get the same result. And I'm going to start with my first number. So I'm going to get negative 132, add my 10, and my answer is going to be negative 122. Go over to my answer choices. And it's C. C is what we're looking for. All right, you guys know what to do. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. I point that way because that's where my chat box is. All right, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's do some geometry. This is a middle/high school type of problem, right? And these are types of questions that often show up where you guys have to kind of like figure out some extra information. They didn't give you everything that you have, so you kind of have to work through what you need, right? So it says that Bobby wants to have a sandbox in her backyard. Maybe she wants to build a sandbox in her backyard. Maybe. Let's say she wants to build a sandbox in her backyard with lumber. And this she was given from a friend of hers. With the lumber, she can make a rectangular sandbox with a perimeter of 64 meters, M. She wants the length of the sandbox to be 3 times the width. Okay, this is where you guys start running from me. This is where you guys just hightail out of here. You don't want to come back. You're like, nope, that's it. Math isn't for me. And the question is what? What is the length of the sandbox? Okay, we have a lot of information here. And based on that information, we can totally solve this problem. Are you guys ready to solve the problem? First things first, what is the shape of the lovely sandbox? Start with the easy questions, right? So here we go. Here's the shape of the lovely sandbox. It's a rectangle. What do we know currently about the sandbox? We know that the perimeter is equal to 64 meters. What does perimeter mean? It is the sum of all exterior sides. All right. Remember, I don't like formulas that much. I prefer concepts. So we understand that perimeter means the sum of all sides. So it doesn't matter what the shape looks like. I will always be able to solve for the perimeter. I will come back to your question. I see it in the chat. So what do we know right now? It says the length of the sandbox is 3 times the width. Well, if I had to write that information down, the length of the sandbox is 3 times the width. I would say that L sounds like it's equal to 3 times the width. How would you represent 3 times the width? 3W. That's it. Just 3W. 3 times means 3 is being multiplied to W, which we're representing as our width. Okay, so we know that the length is equal to 3W. Did they tell us anything about the width? No, there's no real information about the width. They haven't told us how to compare it. They haven't given us a number. They didn't say width is something. They gave us nothing to go off of. So because we don't know anything about the widths, we're going to call them just widths. And the great part here is now both of those sides that aren't labeled, we are going to label them, this side right here and this side down here. We are going to label them with our length, and our length is L, but we can also write it as 3W. Okay, remember we talked about perimeter earlier, and we said that the perimeter is going to be the sum of all the sides. So if I start with this 3W and I work my way around to all the sides until I get back to the 3W that we started with, I'm going to add them. That's what sum means. Remember, sum means to add. I'm going to add them all together. And when I add them all together, they should equal 64. That is what that is telling us. So right now we can put 64 is equal to 3W plus W plus 3W plus W. And I ended up back at my first 3W, so I'm not going to write that. Now I have to combine like terms and see what I can do to solve. So I have 4W here and 4 more W here. So I have 8W on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I have 64. Okay, so remember we're solving for W because that's all we have to solve for. And we are going to divide 8 onto both sides. Remember, when numbers are mushed up next to each other, they're being multiplied. And when you're being multiplied, you are married. And if you don't like that other person, the only way to get out of marriage is to divorce them, which means to divide. So you're going to divide both sides by 8. And what is W equal to? W happens to be equal to 8. Is H our answer? Is H our answer? No, no, no. 8 is not our answer. 8 is what? 8 is the length. I meant the width. 8 is the length. Okay. Close my eyes, take a deep breath. Okay. 8 is the width. We need the length. If we need the length, what do we know the length to be? Boom. We know that the length is 3W. So L is equal to 3W. We happen to know what W is. Plug them in. L is equal to what? When you plug in 8 for W, you get that L is equal to 24. 24 is our answer. Any questions? Okay, I saw your question about PEMDAS. We're going to go back to that really quick. I think my statement was misunderstood. I like PEMDAS. I don't like PEMDAS in a straight row. And I'll give you a quick example as to why I don't like PEMDAS in a straight row. Actually, let's go ahead and use the blank screen. So I don't like PEMDAS in a straight row, and I'm writing it out so you guys can see it. This is the no, and this is the yes. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So why do I not like it in a straight row? I don't like the straight row because what it says is multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, to do it in that order. But you don't do math like that if you don't have any clear direction as to what you're doing. So let's say that the problem was 36 divided by 6 plus 2 times 3 minus 1. Let's just do that problem. Right now, the PEMDAS on the left tells me that I need to multiply first. Okay, so if I multiply first, before I multiply, let me go ahead and write this twice, so then we can do it the wrong way and the right way. So 36 divided by 6 plus 2 times 3 minus 1. So right now, the blue tells us to multiply first. So 36 divided by 6, and 2 times 3 is 6 minus 1. Now I'm going to divide. I'm going to have 36 divided by 6, which is 6. And I'm going to add and subtract. I'll do 6 plus 6 is 12, minus 1 is equal to 11. So let's go ahead and do it the other way. So I'm going to start with 36 divided by 6 plus 2 times 3 minus 1. I really hope this is one of those flukes where they end up being the same answer. I'm going to divide first. 6 plus 2 times 3. It's going to end up being the same answer probably. 2 times 3 is 6. This is a bad example. And they both is equal to 11. I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. Bad example. I know. I'm coming up with this question off the top of my head. Okay, give me one more opportunity and I can show that there is a better way to answer one instead of the other. Okay, I know what to do. All right, here we go. We're going to do 36 divided by 6 times 3 plus 2. That we are going to do. All right. So the first way says 36 divided by 6 times 3 plus 2. It says to multiply first. I promise I'm going to do this. 36 divided by 6 times 3 is 18. Bring down the 2. Now, It says 36 divided by 18. 36 divided by 18 is 2. Bring down the 2, and it's equal to 4. Okay, we have 4. Okay, here's the moment of truth. 36 divided by 6 times 3 plus 2. Here, it says multiply or divide. Which one comes first? I'm going to divide because that's the first one in order from left to right, because that's how we read. So 6 goes into 36 6 times 3 plus 2. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 2 is equal to 20. So it matters how you do your orders of operation. If you do multiplication, then division, then addition, then subtraction, you may result in a wrong answer. But when you have multiplication or division, addition or subtraction, that is where you start answering this correctly, because it's based on like a scientific calculator will do it for you. So if you are putting all your information into a scientific calculator, then you don't have to know which operation comes first. It will do it for you. But if you're doing it by hand, which I know a lot of you are, you have to do parentheses, then exponent. It's multiply or divide, which one comes first, add or subtract, which one comes first. That's why I don't like doing it in a straight line. I prefer to do it with the little dashes. And it will start making a difference when you're solving your algebra problems, because you'll notice that you're starting to get more of the problems correct. And sometimes a lot of you feel that you're not solving the problems correctly because you're not good at math, but sometimes you're just using the wrong method, or maybe you remembered something incorrectly, and that's what's leading you to this not so great answer. All right. I hope I answered your question. If you have another one, feel free to put it in the chat. You know I love answering questions. So question number 4, another geometry problem. Geometry, middle, high school, not really college, but it's definitely middle or high school, right? And all they told us was this little line, and then they just gave us some answer choices. So before we read anything, what do the answer choices look like? We have 5m, then we have 5 pi m, then we have 10m, and 10 pi m. So the answer's in pies and not in pies. So they're trying to trick us. We already know they're trying to trick us. They're trying to get us to do something wrong. And the best thing to do is to no longer pay attention to our answer choices. We know how to solve this problem, so let's go ahead and solve it. It says if the area of a circle is that, so they're telling us area of a circle, what does the word is mean? Is means equal. So the area of the circle is equal to this right here, 25 pi meters squared. Well, do I need to write the meters squared? Do I need to write the meters squared? Not necessarily. The meters squared tells you that your answer is the area of something. Because when you do area of something, it's generally a measurement times a measurement. And if I gave you x times x, you guys know that it would turn into x squared. Same thing with measurements. If I gave you meters times meters, it would turn into meters squared, right? So all they're doing is telling us that the answer is the area of whatever that is, and they gave us those numbers. Can someone please tell me what the area of a circle is? What is the formula for the area of a circle? Its area is equal to pi r squared. And remember, they gave us the area, so where are we going to plug this into? We're going to plug in 25 pi to the left-hand side and keep pi r squared on the right-hand side. Why do we do that? Because remember, they told us what the area was. They told us the area is equal to, so A is 25 pi meters squared. We just don't need to write the meters squared. That's irrelevant to us right now. So how do I solve for this? I have r over here. So the only thing that we can solve for is r. So let's go ahead and get r by itself. That means I'm going to divide both sides by pi. And if I divide pi by pi, I get 1, and it's just irrelevant to write the 1. So I have 25 is equal to r squared. Okay, well, how do I get r completely by itself? Because I don't see anything that says 25 over there. To get r completely by itself, you have to do the opposite of squared, which is to take the square root. When you take the square root of both sides, 25, the square root of 25 becomes 5. Okay, well, 5 is equal to my r. So we could probably say that whatever they're asking for, because the question isn't complete, the radius of the circle is 5 meters. Let's say that they wanted to know the circumference. What is the circumference? To do the circumference, we would need to know the formula for circumference. I know that on some of the formula sheets that you guys are given, it says that the circumference, because it's a fancy word for perimeter, it's for the circle. Circle had to be different, right? C is equal to pi d, which is equal to 2 pi r. Well, we have our r. We were able to figure that out, right? So I'm going to use this part of the formula and not the whole thing, because the whole thing is just a repeated number, right? So now I'm going to plug in what I have for my r, and it's going to be 5. Now my circumference is equal to 10 pi. Our radius by itself was 5, and if they asked for circumference, we could also solve that because we would just plug it in and get an answer. If they asked you for the diameter, how would you do diameter? What is the diameter? Well, the diameter compared to the radius is what? The radius, remember, starts from the middle and it goes halfway out. That's the radius. So the diameter goes straight across. We're going to pretend it goes through the middle. I don't want to write over the colors. So the radius goes halfway across and the diameter goes all the way across. So if you're looking at the diameter, you can say it's twice the radius. So if we had to find the diameter, we would say that the diameter is equal to 2r. And we have what r is. It's 5. So the diameter is just 10. So based on all the stuff we've been solving for, we have that the first answer is the radius. We have that C is the diameter. And we have that D is actually the circumference. So that's just me answering extra questions. I'm reading the chat really quick. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to do the explanation of multiplication division really quick one more time. So the reason we write it the way that we do, or the way that I like to write it, is because we start from the left-hand side and we go to the right-hand side. And we say which operation comes first. So if I have this, I'm going to see that my division comes before my multiplication. So I'm going to divide first and get 6, write everything else. Now there's no other multiplication or division. There's only a multiplication. So now I'm going to multiply and then add my 2, and that is going to be my answer. You always start from the left and work your way to the right once you've finished your parentheses and your exponents. Now this is the multiplication and division part only, right? You're going to go multiplication or division, which one comes first? Addition or subtraction, which one comes first? And remember, we read from the left to the right. So if it's easier to say multiplication or division from left to right, go ahead and say that. But it's whatever makes sense to you, all right? Question number 5, probability and statistics. So, hope nobody's angry with me, but it's a statistics problem. It's a high school / college type of problem. Definitely don't really see these in middle school. So they're asking us for the median. Whew, that's an easy one. So I'm just going to go ahead and start crossing off my numbers because that's how you find the median, right? It's the guy that's in the middle. A lot of you should be yelling at me right now and saying, no, 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 that is not how you do that. That is correct. You do not just start crossing numbers off because you want to. What is the first thing that you have to do before you solve for the median? You have to put the numbers in order. You have to order the numbers. Let's say put numbers in order. Put numbers in order. Once we put the numbers in order, then, only then, can you cross them off and figure out who goes in the middle. So the best thing that you can do because you're taking a computer test is not write on the screen. Please do not write on the screen with your expo marker or your dry erase marker. Don't do that. Don't do that. We're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So the first thing that you should do is take these numbers and write them down on your paper. Everyone should have these numbers down on your paper. Because I'm doing it on the screen, I'm not going to write it down. But you would write them down on the paper. Then count to make sure that you have the same number. It tells us the sample has 8 resistors. Okay, 8. So I need 8 numbers on my paper. If I have 8, then I'm in a good place. If I don't have 8, that means I did something wrong. Then I'm going to put them in order. And while I'm putting them in order, I'm going to cross them off so I don't use the same number again. And then you're going to count them one more time because humans make mistakes and mistakes are okay because we're all human. Count them one more time, make sure that they're 8, and then find the median. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but once you do it, it's really just easy, I promise. So the order that we need to write them in is 35, 37, 37, 39, 40, 43, 43, and 46. Now, go ahead and cross them off. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm left with 2 numbers. I do not list these numbers. There is no way that I list these numbers. That is wrong. I have to do what? When you have 2 numbers in the middle, you take the average of the numbers, which means what? Means I have to solve for the mean of those 2 numbers, which states that I'll do 39 plus 40 and divide it by 2. And the number smack dab in the middle of 39 and 40 is 39.5. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our answer. Median is easy. And if for whatever reason you can't remember the median, remember when you're driving, the thing in the middle of the street, that concrete stuff, it's called a median. Maybe that helped. Hopefully it did. And if it didn't, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's it. That's the median. That was the easy part. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. Are you guys ready to do the fun part? The exact same numbers, so I didn't mess this one up. The standard deviation of this stuff, I know. So those that are taking the GKT, pre-K through 3, elementary K through 6, this is not something that you need to solve for. Anyone taking middle school math, high school math, sometimes children for Praxis, anything like those higher level maths, this is definitely something that they love to ask you. but they give you so many more numbers. And those numbers become very daunting, right? So we're gonna take it slow. I know on the test you're kind, but we're gonna take it slow because I don't wanna mess it up. So before we begin, you do need to know the formula. The formula that we are going to use is the sum of x minus x bar all squared divided by n minus 1. Now, what does x bar mean? I said x bar because I didn't want to give you the word. What is x bar by chance? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what x bar is? If I had to put it in a word, the word would be mean or average. And to solve that, you would do the sum of all of your x's divided by the amount of numbers there are, right? So instead of using all the fancy words that I normally use, well, they're not fancy, they're just words. Instead of using all the words, this time we're going to use some symbols because we're in probability and statistics. Okay, so here we will need, no, this is not a GK2 question. Here we will need to find different pieces. So to find our different pieces, let's start with our x bar. X bar tells us to find the mean or the average. So without looking at those fancy symbols, everybody knows how to solve for the mean. Everyone knows how to solve for the average. To solve for the average, you're going to add up all the numbers that you have and divide by how many numbers you have. The sum of numbers divided by amount of numbers. Right? So if we did this, what is the sum of all of our numbers? Happens to be 320. Okay, now how many numbers do we have? We have 8 numbers. This is the formula that you can use, yes. Okay, so if I do 320 divided by 8, I get 40. So 40 happens to be my x bar, my mean. So now I'm going to make this chart, and this chart's going to make our life easy, I promise, because the chart is going to keep track of all the numbers for us, and we don't have to do it ourselves. So what's going to happen is I'm going to start my chart with my x's. And then from my x's, I'm going to do my x minus my x bar. And remember, our x bar is 40, so we're going to do the number that we have minus the mean. Once we get that, then we're going to do the number that we got in the previous part, and we're going to square it. So let's go ahead and write all of our numbers down. I'm going to put them back in the order from the previous part. So 35, 37, 37, 39, 40, 43, 43, and 46. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we're all in a good place. So we're going to take our number and subtract 40, because that's what it says. It says take the number, which is x, and subtract the mean, which is 40. So 35 minus 40 is what? -5. And you can go straight all the way across if you'd like to. And then we would do -5 squared. And -5 squared is -5 times -5, which is 25. And now the first guy is done. 35 is done. Now if I did 37, I would do 37 minus 40. So I'm going to just work in my whole box right here. I'm not going to come out of my box. Okay, so I'm going to do 37 minus 40, because that's what it says up here, right? 37 minus 40 to get negative 3. Then 37 minus 40 again is negative 3. 39 minus 40 is negative 1. 40 minus 40 is 0. 43 minus 40 is a positive 3. 43 again minus 40 is a positive 3. And 46 minus 40 is a 6. Is anybody lost? Because if so, I can take my time and write all of these out individually so you can see them. Hopefully you can see them. So now that we're done with those numbers, remember we're going to square the ones in the middle. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, so positive 9. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. 0 squared is 0. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. And 6 times 6 is 36. So now that we have all of these, I'm going to do the sum of the last column. And the sum of the last column is 98. The sum of the last column is 98. So now when I plug it into my formula, I'm going to write my formula first. The sum of x minus x bar, or the mean, all squared divided by n minus 1. My numerator is going to be 98, because we calculated that. And we're going to divide that by how many numbers we have, which is 8, and subtract 1, and keep the square root. So 98 divided by 7, that's what it turns into, the square root of 98 divided by 7, and it happens to give us a value of 3.742, which is A. So this is one of those questions that if you just don't know how to solve, it won't get any easier if you don't know your formula. Your formula really does carry your weight on this one, right? And it's one of those things that you have to pick and choose if this is worth your time, because it's not an easy problem, right? This does take a lot of work. And in order to solve it, you have to do all of the pieces. You cannot skip from one part to get to the end result without actually doing it, right? So that's my food for thought on this one. I know, one more time. We're looking for the first quartile. But what is the first quartile? Does anybody know what the first quartile is? Anybody? Anybody? The first quartile is all the data to the left. Oh, I didn't do that right. I apologize. All the data to the left of the median, or the middle numbers. Okay, and in order to find the first quartile, this is just where you find it. In order to actually get the value, you will do the median of those numbers. Okay, so if I wrote it back in order, it would be 35, 37, 37, 39, 40, 43, 43, 46. Okay, so remember these were our median. Our median had 2 numbers in the middle. Now the first quartile is going to be from the set of numbers to the left of that box. So we have to take the median of 35, 37, and 37. Well, if you take the median of it, you're left with just 37. So let's say that we wanted to do the second quartile. It's a question. Where is the second quartile located? Where is the second quartile located? Does anybody know? Second quartile is actually the median. So when we solved for the median and got 39.5, that is the second quartile. That's why I said it was a trick question. Now, if we had to solve for the third quartile, we would now look at the number in the middle to the right of the actual median, the middle numbers, right? And that would end up being 43. So here are two bonus questions. Out of curiosity, what is the maximum number for the data set? What is the maximum number for the data set? It's just 46. It's the largest number. So that means, on the contrary, the minimum number would just be the minimum that's provided, the opposite end, the 35. Okay, these are things that they sometimes ask you questions about. It's always good to know. Questions? I'm about to ask. So one more time, really quick before we move forward. The first quartile is after you find the middle number or numbers, you take all the numbers, not including the middle number. You don't include those numbers. You take all the numbers to the left of that to find the first quartile. The median is the second quartile, and the third quartile is located to the right when you take the median of those numbers. Okay, so here we have a woman is standing on the ground at a point 78 feet from the base of the building. Okay, and then the angle of elevation to the top of the building is 57 degrees. How high is the building to the nearest foot? Okay, so let's draw our person. Let's make a purple. Here's my person. Here's my woman. Then let's go ahead and make a building. Make our building black. There's a building, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be there. And they tell me that my building, that woman and the building are how far apart? 78 feet. I'm going to put 78 feet there. And they said the angle of elevation. They did not say the angle of elevation from her eyes. They did not say anything like that. All they said was the angle of elevation. So that means from her foot, the angle that goes up is what? 57 degrees, and it has to go all the way to the top of the building. Okay, I didn't do so bad. So 57 degrees. Okay, does anybody by chance know how to solve the problem? Because what are we looking for? We are looking for the height of the building. Does anything look familiar to help us solve? Anything look familiar? Well, what's coming to mind is SOHCAHTOA. I'm not inclined to use the SO and the CA only because they have the hypotenuse. And I know that my hypotenuse is this lovely dashed line. I don't have that information. I don't. And I'm not even looking for that information, so I'm not worried about that piece of information. So I'm not going to use the SO and the CA, which means I'm going to use the TOA. I'm not going to use the SO and I'm not going to use the CA, but I'm going to use the TOA. Okay. How do I use the TOA? The TOA means it's the tangent of the degree. The tangent of the degree is equal to the opposite from that angle over the adjacent to that angle. So I'm going to have the tangent of 57 degrees is equal to the opposite, which happens to be the height of the building, which happens to be what you're looking for, all over the adjacent, which is 78. Now, how do I solve for x? We want x all by itself. How do I solve for x? Okay. So the x and the 78 are connected through what operation? It is currently being connected through division. So in order to get something to the other side or move it from where it is, we have to do the opposite operation, which tells us that we will have to multiply both sides by 78. So when I do that, I will get 78 tangent of 57 degrees is equal to x. Now this is something you put into your calculator just like that. You don't change it. Don't push the one with the negative one at the top. Don't do any of that. All you have to do is take your calculator, not your phone, take your calculator and type in 78 tan 57 and press equals, and you will get what? The building is 120 feet tall. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Is there any questions on any of the problems that we did together? Oh, and for my person out there, this is also not on the GKT, not on the elementary, not on the pre-K through 3, none of these smaller subjects. Okay, this is not on the lower grades. This is more on the high grades. So like middle school, high school math, yes, this is definitely something that would be on there because they love their trigonometry. Okay, so this is something that you definitely see with practice. Remember, elevation means to rise and depression means to come down. So if it was an angle of depression, you'd start from the top and have a down angle, if that makes sense, right? So it's just making sure that you're reading the problem. So I'm actually done a lot early today, which is a surprise because normally you guys have so much more questions and interactions with me. And then I was too busy playing on my phone before I started today. I was so used to the music. Sorry, guys. Today has been one of those days. It is definitely Wednesday, and I love what I do, and I love that you're here. And without you, there would be no me, right? So the Learning Liaison always loves to thank you and say thanks for being there. And if you ever need anything, you know where to find us. We also offer one-to-one tutoring sessions. You can get sessions with me or without me. I see your comment, so I'm not going to forget you. And if you need anything outside of the tutoring, there's a code down there that you can use, but it does not work on the tutoring, so please don't try that. And your question, there are lots of questions in here for lower grade levels. So a lower grade level would not be 7. A lower grade level would not be 6. It would be 5 and before. Everything from 5 and before is your 6 through your K through 6, your pre-K through 3, your GKT, all of your lower levels. These are all your lower level questions, 1 to 5. There is no discount code for tutoring. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I am here if you need me. You know where to find me. I see lots of you guys for tutoring, so see some of you soon. Yes, 1 to 5 are the GKT questions. You are very welcome. Always here for you. You are welcome.